Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. My name is AverageBulb, and today I've got some tips. Well, I play D&D, and D&D is a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed it immensely. Got to meet a whole lot of new people, and I just really enjoy the game overall. I enjoy the monsters, enjoy everything about it. But today, I'm still always a bit of a noob about like most things. But here's some of the tips, the mistakes I've made. Yes, I have made these mistakes, but I'm just gonna throw out some of them because some of them very obvious, some of them very much not obvious. So whether you're a beginner or you're very very learned in the D&D universe, then there's still more things to learn. So today I've got a couple I've got 8 tips for you. So the first tip, and this is a bit of a strange one, is do not specify what you're doing during your attack action. Now this does actually have like a bit of a clause, because if you say there's a goblin, right? The goblin knows things, the goblin has information, but the goblin is also trying to attack you, so you need to, like, apprehend that goblin and, like, knock him out or cripple him or something like that, so you are able to seize him attacking you while also being able to keep him alive to extract the information. But if you just say, I attack the goblin with blank, then there's a very large possibility you'll squash that goblin like a gnat, and that information is lost, and the DM will be mad at you. However, if you specify, I take my great club and beat him in the knees to cripple him, or I knock the goblin unconscious, then if you roll correctly, then yeah, sure, you do that correctly. However, there is some very wrong things that you can do with this, that reasons why you should not specify your attack action. And that is usually done through lethal things. For instance, if for example, you're a level 1 noob. You've started at a world, and for some reason you've started running it into an Etten, for example. And Ettens are very strong. And so I specify, I take my dagger and I stab it through the heart and it dies. Well, that's probably not going to happen, is it? You're probably going to, if you land the attack, then you will do, at maximum, about 4 damage, I'd say, and I don't think that's enough to take down a giant. So, the same goes for, like, cutting off something's head, or squashing something. Now, even if you get a critical hit, you're still probably not going to kill those things. So, unless you're trying to, like, incapacitate something, I don't even know if that's the correct word, but if you're trying to incapacitate something, or, like, knock something unconscious or something like that, or restrain it, then do not clarify your action. That is completely up to the DM. They can make it as dramatic or very much undramatic as they choose. So the second one is always bring your stuff. And this time, I'm not actually talking about while playing the game. I'm talking about beforehand preparations. So if you've got a monster manual or something like that, then that's fine. But it's not necessary. The real things that you need are clearly things like a writing utensil, some kind of eraser, and usually a player's manual, especially if you're a spellcaster, because they have all the spells in there that you can easily look through. Or if you're using spells from like things like Xanthar's Guide to Everything, then clearly bring that as well. But the main thing that you should always have is your character sheet. You should not ever be in a position where you have accidentally left your character sheet back behind, because even if you play with another character, it just won't be quite as fun, and you'll still feel sad about it. Just take my word for it. And also, if you leave your character behind, you'll have to be the grung of shame. Yes, this is an inside joke. Long story. Number 3, act as your character would. This ties in with another one later on, but don't do something because you think it's funny. Do something because you think your character and your character's previous actions altogether, your character's personality would work this way. They would do this kind of thing. So if you're just doing something for, for just some random reason, then no, don't do that. Try to keep your character alive and try to keep the story going as normally as possible. Don't just do random things because, they're random. Uh, Number 4, and I hate to say this because I know that I am the most massive hypocrite for saying it, is that number 4, not everything can be tamed. And I did know this, but when I was beginning, the first thing that I immediately thought was I want to tame an owlbear, and I still want to tame an owlbear, and some things can be tamed. For example, if you look through the entirety of the monster manual or other like monster manuals out there, and if they say something, even if it's just like this was found in a gladiatorial, used in gladiatorial combat or something like that, some like small reference of them being tamed, I say that if you do well enough, then you will eventually probably befriend this creature. If it's a beast, or it's like, for instance, like a scorpion or a beaver or something, I don't know why those were the first two things that popped into my head, then you could probably tame it, especially if you're like a druid or something. But the two things that do not apply, and I did kind of know this, is because there's no rules officially for taming things, then it's kind of strange. So but my two things is that it cannot be humanoid, and I'm not talking about the humanoid category. I'm talking about like anything that you could describe as humanoid. Like ogres are not humanoids, they're giant. Not yeah. Ogres are not humanoids, they're giants. But technically speaking, but I still say that there are humanoid creatures and therefore cannot be tamed. And as an additional benefit for those creatures that are not humanoid, but are still have the intelligence to act like one, you should not be able to tame anything that is 5 or above intelligence, because that is not taming, that is slavery, and that is just wrong in a lot of regards. So there's certain things that, like, if it says in the monster manual that you can tame this thing, then you can tame it, but otherwise, if it doesn't, then there are no humanoids and no creatures of 5+ intelligence. So, number 5, act like a spellcaster if you are one. I remember my first character was named Stumbleduck the Bold, and I was a druid, because, I thought about it, I love animals, it just seemed like such an easy choice for me. Druid, able to turn into different animals. Pretty cool. However, I, for some reason, never used this effect, and I only attacked things with a severed goblin limb, which is not smart. I was a spellcaster, and I should not be using things like ordinary melee attacks. You should be doing magic attacks, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense. It's not as effective, and it just can be sometimes very annoying. So if you're a spellcaster, then use some cantrips, use spells, or anything like that. But you shouldn't be out in the front lines whacking things with goblin arms, sadly. But, number 6, make your character origins, an original. So, this is really important, and when I started out with, I fell victim to this quite a bit. I did make some weird characters, but they were just basically me, essentially. You're always acting through your character, but your character should always have different quirks, fears, strengths, and different personalities. So, the first time I really started to get into this was that I created, a stitched-up little rabbit creature with a severe drinking problem that got all soggy and was a barbarian. And it's such a random thing, but it totally worked, and I had so much fun playing that character. So you should always have fun playing your characters and always be following along with your character. And just, quirks are just so underrated among characters. If you've just got some random little thing thrown in there, it just makes them so much more real. So number 7, again, do not do everything for humor. Humor is a big part of D&D, and I'm getting cracked up constantly over what everyone else does, and even what I'm doing, because we in the D&D group, we do some random things. But you shouldn't, this is still, I'm not saying that it should not be humorous, but still, if you know that you're doing something just because you think it's funny, and not because your character would do it, then that doesn't seem right. That I don't feel like that's quite that. Just again, that doesn't quite suit your character, and it might slow things down after all, and it might just not be quite as funny as it would normally if you just played things out ordinarily. But number 8, have fun. This may be cheesy, but D&D is a really, really fun game for everyone, essentially. It might seem really technical, especially if you're starting off, but it's a lot of fun to be with friends and in this immersive experience. So, yeah, that's about it. Those are 8 tips. 8 fairly average tips from AverageBulb, and there's not a whole lot more to be said. Again, follow the rules and everything like that of D&D, but otherwise, I feel like you can do whatever you want. That's the good thing about D&D. So, yep, this is AverageBulb signing off.